For 300
This is
years,
it. We
Earth
knew this
stayed
day would
silent.
come.
No
Deploy
human
the
ships
Eris
crossed the
protocol.
stars.
We defend
No
Earth
human
to the
voice
last
entered
breath.
the galactic networks. No trade signals came from the Sol system. Nothing. At first, the galaxy believed humanity had destroyed itself. Some said humans started a nuclear war. Others believed artificial intelligence had taken over Earth. A few races even claimed humans opened a forbidden gate somewhere in deep space and unleashed something terrible. But nobody knew the truth. The Sol system slowly became a dead zone. Thousands of ships tried to enter during the first 50 years after humanity vanished. Most never returned. The few that escaped came back damaged and silent. Their crews spoke about strange shadows near Neptune, massive objects moving in darkness, and invisible forces tearing ships apart. After enough losses, the Galactic Union banned all travel near Earth. The system was abandoned. Over time, humanity became a story told to children, the silent species, a race that disappeared without a trace. But silence never lasts forever. Far away from Earth, near the outer borders of Union space, an alien patrol ship drifted through endless darkness. The ship was called Valaris. Its captain, Lauren, sat quietly inside the command bridge while stars moved slowly outside the giant windows. The patrol had been boring for weeks. Nothing dangerous ever happened near the border systems anymore. Most of the crew looked half asleep. Then every alarm on the ship suddenly activated. Red lights flashed across the bridge. One officer jumped from his seat. "Captain, we are receiving an unknown signal." Lauren frowned. "Pirates?" "No, sir," the officer answered nervously. "The signal is old, very old." The captain slowly stood. Static filled the bridge speakers. At first, the sound was broken and unclear. Then a voice finally appeared through the noise. A human voice. "Cold. Calm. Stay away from Earth," the voice said. "The wall is failing." The entire bridge froze. Nobody moved. For a moment, even the ship itself felt silent. Lauren stared at the screen in disbelief. Humanity had been gone for 300 years. Hearing a real human voice was almost impossible. One young officer whispered carefully, "That cannot be real." But before anyone could speak again, the signal repeated. "Stay away from Earth. The wall is failing." The transmission ended. The crew looked at each other, with fear growing in their eyes. Captain Lauren quickly regained control. "Trace the source," he ordered. The navigation officer worked rapidly across glowing screens. Seconds later, his face turned pale. The signal came from inside the Sol system. Fear spread across the bridge immediately. Even experienced officers stepped back from their stations. Nobody wanted anything connected to Earth. Then another alarm activated. A second signal was appearing, but this time it was not targeting only the Valaris. It was spreading across the entire galactic network. Every station, every colony, every military fleet. The message carried only one sentence: "They are waking up." Then the signal disappeared completely. Silence returned to the bridge. Captain Lauren felt cold sweat on his neck. Something was terribly wrong. Within hours, panic spread across the galaxy. News stations stopped normal broadcasts. Emergency channels activated everywhere. Citizens flooded public networks with fear and rumors. Humanity was alive, and they were warning the galaxy. On the capital world of the Galactic Union, millions gathered outside giant public screens as reporters repeated the same terrifying story. A human transmission has been confirmed for the first time in 3 centuries. Inside the enormous Union Senate, chaos exploded. Thousands of alien leaders shouted across the giant chamber. Some demanded immediate war preparations. Others wanted every system near Earth evacuated. A few senators claimed it was a trick created by smugglers or rebels. Then the chamber doors slowly opened. An old alien general entered quietly. General Kale. The room slowly fell silent as he walked forward. Kale was one of the last living officers who had known humanity before their disappearance. Age covered his face, and metal scars ran across one side of his body from wars long forgotten. He stopped in the center of the Senate floor. One senator spoke loudly. "General Kale, you fought beside humans long ago. Tell us the truth. What is happening?" Kale remained silent for several seconds. Then he finally spoke. The humans were never hiding from us. His deep voice echoed across the chamber. They were hiding from something else. Fear moved through the Senate like cold wind. Another senator laughed nervously. That is impossible. No enemy could frighten humanity. Kale slowly turned toward him. You never saw what they found beyond the outer dark. The chamber became silent again. Kale activated an old hologram device with shaking hands. A giant image appeared above the Senate floor. At first, the senators could not understand what they were seeing. Then horror spread across their faces. The hologram showed a massive object floating between dead stars. It was larger than planets, black, covered in strange glowing red lines. Around it floated thousands of destroyed ships. Human ships, alien ships, entire fleets reduced to broken metal. Several senators stepped back in fear. "What is that?" someone whispered. Kale looked directly at them. The humans called them sleepers. No one spoke. Kale continued quietly. 300 years ago, humanity discovered these creatures moving toward our galaxy. They tried to warn the Union. Nobody listened. The Senate remained frozen. "We believe humans were paranoid," Kale said bitterly. "So they returned home alone." One senator asked carefully, "And the wall?" Kale's eyes darkened. Humanity built a barrier around the Sol system to keep the sleepers trapped outside. Fear filled the chamber completely now. Then suddenly every screen inside the Senate turned black. Gasps echoed everywhere. A face slowly appeared on the giant central display. Human, older, tired, scarred. The man wore a dark military uniform marked with the symbol of Earth. "My name is Admiral Elias Ward," he said calmly, "Earth Defense Command." The entire Senate stared in shock. A living human, after 300 years. Ward's face remained emotionless. "We kept silent because the war could not leave Sol space," he said. "But now the barrier is collapsing." One frightened senator stood up immediately. "What are the sleepers?" Ward looked at him quietly. Then he answered with one sentence that froze every soul inside the chamber. "The end of civilizations." Suddenly, the screen changed. A live image appeared from deep space near Pluto. The Senate gasped in horror. Something enormous moved slowly through darkness, a creature bigger than moons. Its surface looked alive. Red light pulsed across its body like giant veins. Thousands of broken warships floated around it like dust. Then, slowly, the creature opened a single glowing eye and looked directly at them. The transmission ended instantly. Panic exploded across the Senate chamber. But far away on Earth, deep beneath the frozen oceans of Europa Station, warning sirens screamed through underground halls. Human soldiers rushed through steel corridors. Scientists shouted at glowing monitors. One terrified officer burst into the command center. "Admiral," he yelled. Elias Ward turned slowly. The officer's voice shook with fear. "They breached Layer 7. For the first time in many years, fear appeared in Ward's eyes. After 300 years of silence, humanity was finally losing. The galaxy stopped breathing after the transmission. Across thousands of worlds, people stared at their screens in silence. The image of the giant creature near Pluto spread through every network channel within minutes. Nobody had ever seen something so large or so terrifying. The Galactic Union declared a Level 1 emergency for the first time in history. Military fleets moved immediately. Battleships launched from hidden stations. Defense systems activated around major planets. Entire trade routes closed overnight. Fear spread faster than light itself. But inside the Union Senate, the arguments only grew worse. "We must destroy Earth before those creatures escape." "No," another senator shouted. "We should evacuate the inner systems immediately." "You're all panicking over one image." The chamber became louder and louder. Only General Kale remained silent. He sat in darkness near the back of the room, staring at the frozen image of the creature, the sleeper. Even after 300 years, seeing it again made his blood run cold. Then suddenly, the Senate doors opened again. A young officer rushed inside. "Emergency report," she shouted. Long-range stations near Sol space have gone dark. The room froze. How many stations? One senator asked nervously. The officers swallowed hard. All of them. Fear spread across the chamber instantly. Cale slowly stood. They are moving faster now, he said quietly. The senators turned toward him. One nervous senator stepped forward. You knew this would happen? Cale's expression darkened. I feared it. Then he walked toward the center of the Senate chamber. The Union has two choices, he said. Run and wait for death, or go to Earth. The chamber exploded with angry voices again. Go near Sol? Impossible. That system is cursed. We will be walking into a trap. Cale slammed his metal hand onto the Senate table. The loud sound silenced everyone. You still do not understand, he growled. Humanity was not hiding from us. Humanity was standing between us and extinction. Nobody spoke. For the first time, fear overcame pride. Hours later, the largest military fleet in Union history prepared for departure. More than 8,000 warships gathered near the outer edge of Sol space. Massive carriers floated beside heavy destroyers. Energy weapons glowed across dark metal hulls. Fighters moved between ships like insects. At the center of the fleet stood the command ship Titan Shield. General Cale watched silently through the giant bridge window as stars stretched endlessly ahead. A young commander approached carefully. General, she said, the fleet is ready. Cale nodded slowly. But deep inside, he felt something terrible waiting ahead. He remembered the last time he entered Sol space. 300 years ago. The screams, the darkness, the impossible shadows moving between stars. He closed his eyes briefly. Then the fleet jumped into hyperspace. Hours later, warning alarms echoed across every ship. We are approaching the Sol boundary. The fleet exited hyperspace near the edge of the solar system. And immediately, every bridge fell silent. The darkness ahead did not look normal. Massive structures floated near Neptune like giant black towers. Some were larger than cities. Blue energy moved across their surfaces like lightning. Human defense stations. Thousands of them. The fleet's sensors struggled to understand what they were seeing. One officer whispered softly, How long were humans building all this? Cale answered quietly, For 300 years. Then a signal arrived. The screen flickered. Admiral Elias Ward appeared once again. His face looked more exhausted now. You should not have come, Ward said coldly. A Union commander stepped forward angrily. We came to help. Ward's expression did not change. You came too late. Suddenly, every alarm on the bridge activated. A terrified sensor officer jumped from his seat. Massive energy surge detected. Location? Cale demanded. The officer pointed toward deep space beyond Pluto. At first, there was only darkness. Then something moved. Huge, slow, impossible. The stars themselves seemed to disappear behind it. Gasps spread across the bridge. Another sleeper. But this one was even larger than the creature from the transmission. Its body stretched across thousands of kilometers. Red lines glowed across its black surface like burning veins. Broken ships floated around it like dust trapped in gravity. Then its giant eyes slowly opened. Every screen on every ship instantly filled with static. Several officers screamed as systems failed. Shields collapsing. Navigation offline. Weapons not responding. Cale gripped the command table tightly. The sleeper had not even attacked yet. Its presence alone was destroying their systems. Then Admiral Ward's voice returned through emergency channels. All ships retreat immediately. Nobody moved fast enough. The sleeper released a pulse of red light. And suddenly, entire warships vanished. Not exploded. Not damaged. Gone. Hundreds of Union ships disappeared into darkness within seconds. Panic erupted across the fleet. Retreat. Move back. Hyperspace drives failing. Crew members screamed across communication lines as ships collided in confusion. Cale watched in horror as one massive carrier folded inward like crushed paper before disappearing completely. The sleeper kept moving forward slowly, calmly, like a predator walking through helpless prey. Then something unexpected happened. New signals appeared across the battlefield. Human ships, Thousands of them emerged from hidden stations around Saturn and Jupiter. Dark warships unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They looked damaged, scarred, and brutal. Not exploration vessels. Not peaceful ships. War machines. Human fleets rushed directly toward the sleeper without hesitation. One Union officer stared in disbelief. "They're attacking that thing," Cale whispered quietly. "No, they're delaying it." The human ships opened fire. Massive blue beams struck the sleeper's surface. Nuclear missiles exploded across its body. Entire attack wings slammed into glowing weak points. For the first time, the creature slowed slightly. But it was not enough. The sleeper answered with another pulse. Dozens of human ships vanished instantly, yet the humans kept attacking. Wave after wave. Without fear. Without stopping. The stars themselves seemed to disappear behind it. Gasps spread across the bridge. Another sleeper. But this one was even larger than the creature from the transmission. Its body stretched across thousands of kilometers. Red lines glowed across its black surface like burning veins. Broken ships floated around it like dust trapped in gravity. Then its giant eyes slowly opened. Every screen on every ship instantly filled with static. Several officers screamed as systems failed. Shields collapsing. Navigation offline. Weapons not responding. Cale gripped the command table tightly. The sleeper had not even attacked yet. Its presence alone was destroying their systems. Then Admiral Ward's voice returned through emergency channels. All ships retreat immediately. Nobody moved fast enough. The sleeper released a pulse of red light, and suddenly entire warships vanished. Not exploded, not damaged, gone. Hundreds of Union ships disappeared into darkness within seconds. Panic erupted across the fleet. Retreat. Move back. Hyperspace drives failing. Crew members screamed across communication lines as ships collided in confusion. Cale watched in horror as one massive carrier folded inward like crushed paper before disappearing completely. The sleeper kept moving forward slowly, calmly, like a predator walking through helpless prey. Then something unexpected happened. New signals appeared across the battlefield. Human ships. Thousands of them emerged from hidden stations around Saturn and Jupiter. Dark warships unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They looked damaged, scarred, and brutal. Not exploration vessels. Not peaceful ships. War machines. Human fleets rushed directly toward the sleeper without hesitation. One Union officer stared in disbelief. "They are attacking that thing," Cale whispered quietly. "No, they're delaying it." The human ships opened fire. Massive blue beams struck the sleeper's surface. Nuclear missiles exploded across its body. Entire attack wings slammed into glowing weak points. For the first time, the creature slowed slightly. But it was not enough. The sleeper answered with another pulse. Dozens of human ships vanished instantly, yet the humans kept attacking. Wave after wave. Without fear. Without stopping. Cale watched silently as one heavily damaged human battleship moved directly toward the creature. Its engines burned bright red. Collision course. A transmission suddenly spread across all channels. A human captain appeared on screen. Blood covered one side of his face, but his voice remained calm. "This is Captain Reyes of the battleship Valiant." Warning sirens screamed behind him. "To all remaining fleets, humanity thanks you for trying." Cale's eyes widened. A crystal, dark red, alive. Cale immediately felt uneasy looking at it. "What is this?" he asked carefully. Ward stared at the crystal silently. The reason humanity disappeared. The room became colder. Ward slowly activated an old holographic recording. An image appeared above the crystal. Cale's eyes widened immediately. It showed Earth 300 years ago, before the silence, before the war. A younger Elias Ward stood beside human scientists in Antarctica. One scientist spoke nervously in the recording. "We found it beneath the ice 2 kilometers underground." The image changed. Cale saw an enormous black structure buried beneath Antarctica. Ancient, massive, covered in symbols no one understood. Ward's voice continued quietly. "Human mining teams discovered ruins older than any civilization in the galaxy." Another image appeared. Workers opened a giant stone chamber hidden deep inside the ruins. At the center stood the same red crystal, now floating in front of Cale. Then the recording suddenly filled with static. People screamed. Lights exploded. Several scientists collapsed to the ground, bleeding from their eyes. Cale stepped back slightly. What happened? Ward looked at the crystal. It activated. The hologram continued. Strange signals spread across every human system immediately after the crystal awakened. Human stations near deep space began disappearing. Ships vanished beyond the edge of the galaxy. Then humanity discovered the truth. The crystal was not technology. It was a prison key. Cale felt cold fear crawl through his body. Ward spoke softly now. Millions of years ago, an ancient civilization trapped the sleepers outside our galaxy. The room remained silent, except for distant machine sounds. They built giant barriers between galaxies. Ward continued. The crystal controlled one of the gates. Cale stared at him in horror. You opened it. Ward closed his eyes briefly. Yes. Silence filled the chamber. For the first time, Cale understood why humanity vanished. This nightmare had started because of one mistake, one terrible discovery. Ward looked older suddenly. We tried to close the gate immediately, but by then, the sleepers had already seen us. The hologram changed again. Cale watched old footage of giant black creatures moving through dead star systems. Entire planets vanished behind shadows. Fleets burned across empty space. Humanity had faced a horror alone for centuries. Then Ward activated another recording. This one was recent, only weeks old. Cale frowned as he watched several alien senators meeting secretly inside a hidden chamber. One senator placed a strange black object onto a table. The same symbols from Antarctica glowed across its surface. Cale's eyes widened. What is this? Ward's expression darkened. The real reason you are here. Another figure entered the recording wearing a dark cloak. Though his face remained hidden, his voice was clear. The barriers around the galaxy are weakening, the figure said. Soon the sleepers will feed again. Cale felt his blood turn cold. These people, he whispered. Ward nodded slowly. They helped reopen the gate. The chamber fell silent. Traitors. Inside the Galactic Union itself. Cale suddenly understood everything. The sleepers had not returned by accident. Someone had brought them back. Before Cale could speak again, warning alarms suddenly exploded across the entire base. Red emergency lights filled the chamber. Human officers shouted through communication channels. Ward instantly turned toward the screens. A terrified operator appeared. Admiral, the man yelled. Defense stations near Jupiter just went dark. Cale's stomach tightened. How many? The operator swallowed hard. All of them. Then another voice screamed through the speakers. Multiple sleeper signatures detected entering the inner system. The room froze. Ward stared silently at the tactical map as dozens of red warning symbols appeared across the solar system. The monsters were no longer waiting outside. They were finally entering human space, and Earth stood directly in their path. Earth shook beneath endless alarms. Deep underground, human command centers exploded into motion. Officers rushed between glowing screens while warning sirens echoed through steel corridors. The sleeper fleet had entered the inner solar system, and this time there were too many. General Cale stood inside Earth Defense Command, staring at the giant tactical display covering the wall. Red symbols filled the map. Every red mark represented a sleeper. There were hundreds. Human fleets moved desperately between Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn trying to slow the advance. But ships disappeared every minute. One young officer looked pale as she read incoming reports. Europa station destroyed. Another voice followed instantly. Titan defense grid offline. Then another. 3 fleets lost near Jupiter. Cale clenched his fist tightly. The monsters were tearing through the solar system faster than anyone predicted. Admiral Ward stood completely still near the center of the room. His face showed no fear anymore. Only exhaustion. A communication officer suddenly turned toward him. Admiral, she said carefully, the Galactic Union is requesting emergency contact. Ward nodded once. The giant screen activated. The Union Senate appeared in chaos. Senators shouted over each other, while smoke filled parts of the chamber behind them. Emergency alarms echoed through the Capitol building. The war had already reached Union space. One frightened senator stepped forward. "Admiral Ward," he said quickly, "sleeper creatures are attacking border systems across the galaxy. Entire colonies have vanished." Ward's voice remained cold. "They spread faster after every feeding." Another senator slammed his hand onto the table angrily. "You should have told us everything centuries ago." For the first time, anger flashed in Ward's eyes. "We tried." Silence crushed the chamber. Nobody answered, because deep down they knew he was right. 300 years ago, humanity warned the galaxy, and the galaxy laughed. Now billions would die for that mistake. Suddenly, the Senate lights flickered violently. Cale narrowed his eyes immediately. Something felt wrong. Then several senators slowly stood from their seats. Their movements looked unnatural. Calm, cold. One of them smiled strangely, and black veins suddenly spread across his skin. The chamber froze in horror. What is happening?" someone whispered. The senator looked directly into the camera. His eyes were completely black. "The sleepers are eternal," he said softly. Panic exploded across the Senate chamber. Several guards rushed forward, but the infected senators attacked instantly. Hidden weapons appeared beneath their robes. Energy fire ripped through the room. Screams filled the broadcast. Cale stepped closer to the screen in shock. "Traitors," he growled. More senators began changing. Black veins spread across their bodies like living shadows. Their voices became distorted. They were no longer fully alive. The sleepers had infected them somehow. One infected senator smiled directly at the camera. "The galaxy already belongs to them." Then the transmission cut suddenly into static. Inside Earth Command, silence filled the room. One officer whispered nervously. "They infiltrated the Senate." Ward's expression darkened. "No," he said quietly. "They infiltrated the galaxy long ago." Hours later, disaster spread everywhere. Major Union worlds stopped responding one by one. Trade networks collapsed. Military commands vanished. Entire governments disappeared overnight. Refugee ships flooded toward Earth from every direction. Millions of civilians begged for protection. Cale stood inside a massive hangar, watching human soldiers guide frightened alien families underground. Children cried beside damaged ships. Injured civilians covered the floor. Emergency medical teams rushed through endless crowds. One alien mother grabbed Cale desperately. "Please," she begged, "tell me Earth can stop them." Cale looked around silently. For the first time in his life, he did not know what to say. Far above Earth, the war became worse. Human fleets fought nonstop near Mars and Luna. The blackness of space burned with explosions. A young human pilot named Lieutenant Mira Hayes flew through the battle inside her damaged fighter. Warning alarms screamed around her. Missiles locked. She rolled the fighter hard as red energy beams passed beside her cockpit. Ahead of her, a sleeper slowly moved through dozens of human ships. Massive, silent, untouchable, entire cruisers vanished each time its red eye opened. Myra's hand shook slightly on the controls. She had fought since childhood. Every human pilot had. But nothing prepared anyone for this. A voice suddenly echoed through her headset. "This is command. All fighters fall back immediately." Mira frowned. "What?" "We still have ships trapped near the line." Then Admiral Ward's voice replaced the signal. "That is an order, Lieutenant." Something in his tone made her heart sink. The human fleets suddenly began retreating toward Earth. Not regrouping. Retreating. Mira stared in disbelief as massive defense stations around the moon powered down one by one. "What are we doing?" she whispered. No one answered. Deep beneath Antarctica, General Cale entered a hidden chamber alongside Ward. Huge metal doors closed behind them. Inside waited something enormous. Cale stopped walking immediately. Rows upon rows of warships filled the giant underground cavern. Thousands of them. More ships than the entire Galactic Union fleet combined. Black armored hulls stretched endlessly into darkness. Each vessel carried strange symbols across its surface. Cale stared in shock. "You hid this fleet for 3 centuries?" Ward nodded slowly. "We were never preparing to survive." The answer sent cold fear through Cale's chest. At the far end of the cavern stood one gigantic ship unlike the others. Its surface looked almost alive. Dark energy moved beneath its armor. Cale looked at it carefully. "What is that?" Ward remained silent for several seconds. Then he finally answered. "Humanity's final weapon." Cale turned toward him slowly. "What does it do?" Ward's eyes looked empty now. "It destroys stars." Silence filled the chamber. Cale felt sick. Ward walked toward the giant ship, while thousands of workers prepared for launch. "For 300 years," Ward said quietly, "humanity searched for a way to kill the sleepers." Cale followed beside him. "And did you find one?" Ward stopped walking. Then he looked directly at Cale. "Yes." Hope appeared for one brief moment. Then Ward spoke again. "But it will destroy half the galaxy with them." Cale's blood ran cold. Outside the chamber, warning sirens suddenly screamed again. An officer rushed through the doors. "Admiral," he shouted, "sleeper fleets have reached lunar orbit." The room froze. Earth's final defenses were collapsing. Ward slowly looked upward toward the distant surface above them. The war had finally arrived at humanity's homeworld, and humanity was preparing to make an impossible choice: save the galaxy or burn it. Earth burned beneath a sky full of war. From the surface, giant explosions lit the darkness above the planet. Human defense stations fired endless streams of blue energy into space, while broken ships fell through the atmosphere like burning meteors. People across Earth watched silently from underground shelters. Children held their parents tightly. Old soldiers sat quietly near cold metal walls. Everyone knew the truth now. This was the final battle. Inside Earth Defense Command, the giant tactical screen flashed red without stopping. Sleeper fleets surrounded the moon. Human defenses were failing sector by sector. One exhausted officer shouted across the command room, "Lunar shield array at 20%. Another voice followed instantly, "Fleet Sigma destroyed near Mars." General Cale stood beside Admiral Ward, watching the disaster unfold. The old alien general had seen civilizations collapse before, but never this fast, never this completely. Then suddenly, all alarms inside the room stopped. The silence felt unnatural. Every officer slowly turned toward Admiral Ward. He activated the main communication system. His calm voice spread across every human ship in the solar system. "This is Admiral Elias Ward." Across Earth, soldiers stopped moving. Pilots looked up from their controls. Workers inside factories paused beside giant machines. Everyone listened. "For 300 years," Ward continued quietly, "humanity stood alone between the galaxy and extinction." The tactical map behind him showed red enemy symbols moving closer to Earth. "We fought in silence because there was no other choice." Ward's tired eyes moved across the command room. "But today's silence ends." Deep underground, massive sirens echoed through hidden chambers beneath Antarctica. Huge blast doors slowly opened, and the Black Sun fleet awakened. General Cale watched the screens carefully as thousands of hidden warships rose from beneath Earth's surface. Gigantic engines ignited like artificial stars. Dark armored vessels climbed toward space through enormous launch tunnels hidden beneath oceans, mountains, and deserts. The fleet looked endless. Humanity's secret army, built during 3 centuries of darkness. One young Union officer whispered in disbelief, "How many ships are there?" A human commander answered softly, "Enough to die trying." Far above Earth, the sleeper fleet continued advancing. Massive black creatures floated through space beside infected warships controlled by corrupted alien civilizations. Nothing slowed them. Not missiles, not plasma weapons, not sacrifice. Then suddenly, new signals filled every battlefield channel. Thousands of human ships emerged from hyperspace at once. The Black Sun fleet. The human vessels formed giant attack formations around Earth, while dark energy weapons charged across their hulls. The sleeper creatures finally stopped moving. For the first time, the monsters reacted. General Cale noticed immediately. "They fear this fleet," he whispered. Admiral Ward remained silent. Then he gave one order. "Begin Operation Black Sunday." Across the battlefield, humanity attacked. The stars themselves seemed to shake. Human warships fired massive beams of dark energy directly into the sleeper fleet. Entire regions of space exploded with white light. Nuclear fire covered the battlefield like storms. Several sleeper creatures finally screamed. The sound echoed through every communication system like living nightmares. Kale watched one giant sleeper lose half its body beneath concentrated human fire. It was the first real damage the monsters had suffered in centuries. Cheers erupted across parts of the fleet, but the victory lasted only seconds. More sleepers emerged from hyperspace behind the first wave. Dozens, then hundreds. Kale's hope vanished instantly. There are too many. Ward stared at the tactical screen, silently. Yes. The battle became pure chaos. Human ships rammed sleeper creatures directly when weapons failed. Entire fleets detonated themselves beside enemy formations. Still the monsters kept coming. Lieutenant Mira Hayes flew through burning debris inside her damaged fighter. Sweat covered her face while warning alarms screamed around her. A giant sleeper moved ahead of her like a living planet. Human cruisers exploded around its massive body. Mira, a pilot shouted through her headset. Fall back. You're too close. She ignored the warning. Her fighter accelerated directly toward the creature. Missiles launched from beneath her wings. The explosions barely scratched the monster. Then the sleeper's eye opened. Red light covered space. Everything around Mira vanished instantly. Ships, fighters, people, gone. Her hands shook violently as she barely escaped the pulse wave. How do we kill these things? She whispered. No one answered, because no one knew. Deep inside the command ship Eternal Horizon, General Kale entered a hidden war chamber beside Admiral Ward. The room contained only one object, a giant hologram of the galaxy, but half the stars were glowing red now. Dead systems, destroyed civilizations. Kale stared silently. We're losing, he admitted quietly. Ward looked exhausted. We lost a long time ago. Kale turned toward him sharply. Then why keep fighting? Ward remained silent for several seconds. Then he activated another hidden image inside the hologram. Kale's eyes widened. At the center of the galaxy floated something enormous, a structure larger than moons. Black, ancient, alive. The hive, Ward said quietly. Kale stepped closer. All sleepers are connected to it. Every creature, every infected mind. The image zoomed inward. Millions of red signals moved inside the giant structure like blood through veins. If the hive dies, Ward continued, the sleepers die with it. Hope returned for one brief moment. Then Kale noticed something terrible. The hive floated beside the galactic core itself, a region surrounded by unstable stars and black holes. No fleet could survive there, Kale whispered. Ward nodded slowly. That's why this mission was never about survival. Kale finally understood. Operation Black Sun was not a battle. It was a suicide mission. The Black Sun fleet was going directly into the center of the galaxy. No return, no escape, only sacrifice. Outside the chamber, alarms suddenly activated again. An officer rushed inside. Admiral, Earth's lunar defenses have collapsed. The tactical screen flashed violently. Several sleeper creatures were descending toward Earth itself. Billions of civilians remained underground. Kale looked toward Ward immediately. What now? Ward's face became completely calm. The calmness frightened Kale more than fear ever could. The Admiral slowly activated the fleet-wide communication system again. All remaining human forces, he said quietly, prepare for final phase. Across the battlefield, damaged human ships turn away from Earth, not retreating, advancing toward the galactic core, toward the hive, toward certain death. Mira Hayes listened to the order through her headset while flying beside burning wreckage. Her eyes widened. The core, she whispered. Another pilot laughed weakly through static. Well, this is one hell of a way to die. Thousands of human ships formed massive formations around Eternal Horizon. The Black Sun fleet prepared for its final journey. Behind them, Earth burned. Ahead of them waited the hive. And somewhere inside the darkness of the galactic core, something ancient was already waiting for humanity to arrive. The Black Sun fleet entered the galactic core in silence. Thousands of damaged human warships moved through darkness filled with dying stars, broken planets, and violent storms of energy. Outside the windows, space itself looked wounded. No one spoke much anymore. The soldiers already knew this mission had no return. Inside the command ship Eternal Horizon, Admiral Elias Ward stood alone near the front observation window. Ahead of him, hidden inside endless darkness, waited the hive, the source of the sleepers, the heart of the nightmare. Behind him, General Kale entered the bridge slowly. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then Kale finally asked quietly, "How long have you known?" Ward kept staring into the darkness. "Since the beginning." Kale frowned. "You knew humanity could never truly win?" Ward nodded once. "The sleepers are endless. Every time one dies, the hive creates another." The answer filled the bridge with silence. A young officer nearby whispered nervously, "Then why are we here?" Ward finally turned toward them. "Because we found something more important than victory." Nobody understood. Not yet. Suddenly, warning alarms echoed across the fleet. Enemy movement detected. The darkness ahead began moving. Massive shadows appeared between burning stars. Dozens of sleeper creatures emerged around the fleet, their giant red eyes glowing like blood in space. The final battle had begun. "Open fire," Ward ordered. The Black Sun fleet attacked instantly. Blue and white energy beams tore across darkness. Nuclear explosions lit the galactic core like newborn suns. Human ships charged directly into the enemy without hesitation. But this battle felt different. The sleepers were no longer trying to destroy the fleet. They were trying to stop it from reaching the hive. "They know our target," Kale realized. Ward nodded, "which means they can fear." The human fleet pushed deeper to the battlefield, while ships exploded around them every second. Lieutenant Mira Hayes flew beside the Eternal Horizon, inside one of the last fighter squadrons. Her fighter shook violently from nearby explosions. A sleeper pulse wave suddenly destroyed 3 ships beside her instantly. Her breathing became heavy. They were losing too fast. Then the impossible happened. One giant sleeper opened its body, and human voices came from inside it. Mira froze, screaming, begging. Thousands of trapped voices echoed through communication channels. Kale stared at the battlefield screen in horror. "What is that?" A scientist answered with pale fear on her face. "The sleepers are absorbing minds." Another sleeper burst open nearby. Inside its dark body floated broken ships and half-living survivors connected to black veins. The monsters were not just killing civilizations. They were consuming them. Ward's face hardened. That is why the hive must die. Hours later, only a fraction of the Black Sun fleet remained alive. Burning wreckage filled the galactic core. Entire human divisions were gone. But finally, the hive appeared. Every person on the bridge fell silent. The structure was bigger than planets. A giant black mass floating near the center of the galaxy, while red energy pulsed across its surface like a heartbeat. Millions of glowing eyes slowly opened across the hive's body, watching them, waiting. Even General Kale felt fear crush his chest. It looked less like a machine and more like a god. One officer whispered shakily, "How can we destroy something that big?" Ward answered quietly, "We don't." The Admiral activated a hidden hologram above the bridge. An ancient symbol appeared, the same symbol from Antarctica. "The prison system still exists," he explained. "The ancient civilization failed to destroy the sleepers, so they trapped them outside the galaxy instead." Kale slowly understood. "You're going to seal them away again." Ward nodded. "But someone must enter the hive directly and activate the lock from inside." Silence covered the bridge. Everyone understood what that meant. No one could survive that mission. Kale stepped closer immediately. "I'll go." Ward shook his head. "No, you cannot ask your people for more sacrifice." Ward looked at him calmly. They were always willing. Before Kale could answer, Ward activated fleet-wide communications one final time. Across every surviving ship, human soldiers looked toward their screens. Ward's tired face appeared before them. "For 300 years," he said softly, "humanity carried this burden alone. Broken ships drifted silently around the fleet, while the battle continued behind him. We lost our homes, our families, our future. Mira listened quietly from her fighter while tears filled her eyes. Ward continued speaking. But if this is the end, then let it mean something. The entire fleet became silent. Then thousands of voices answered together through the communication channels. For Earth, Ward closed his eyes briefly. Then he gave the final order. All fleets advance. The remaining human ships charged directly toward the hive. A wall of sleeper creatures moved to intercept them. The final sacrifice began. Human cruisers rammed enemy monsters to clear pathways. Fighters detonated themselves beside giant red eyes. Entire capital ships exploded to protect the eternal horizon. One by one, the fleet disappeared, but the path opened. At last, Ward's ship reached the surface of the hive. The giant structure slowly opened like a living mouth. Darkness waited inside. Kale grabbed Ward's arm before he left the bridge. You don't have to do this alone. Ward gave a small, tired smile. Yes, he said quietly. I do. Then the Admiral walked away. Inside the hive, the walls moved like living flesh. Human voices whispered through darkness. Millions of trapped minds cried out from inside the giant structure. Ward walked alone through endless black corridors, carrying the prison key from Antarctica. The hive tried speaking to him. You cannot stop eternity. Ward kept walking. You are the last of your species. Still he walked forward. Finally, he reached the center. A massive red core pulsed before him like a giant heart. The prison system activated automatically as he approached. Ancient symbols filled the chamber with white light. A cold mechanical voice echoed around him. Living consciousness required to maintain seal. Ward looked down at Earth's old symbol on his uniform. Then he placed the crystal into the core. Outside, every sleeper in the galaxy suddenly stopped moving. The prison was activating. Kale watched in shock from the bridge as giant waves of white light spread across space. The sleepers began disappearing one by one. The war was ending. Then Ward's final transmission reached every system in the galaxy. His voice sounded calm, tired, human. For 300 years, humanity stayed silent so others could survive. The light around the hive grew brighter. Now it is your turn to live. The transmission ended. The hive collapsed inward, and then everything became silent. Months later, the galaxy slowly began rebuilding. The sleepers were gone. The war was over. Earth survived, but barely. Cities lay in ruins. Millions were dead. Most of the Black Sun fleet never returned. But for the first time in centuries, Earth opened its borders again. General Kale stood near a peaceful hill outside one rebuilt human city. Children laughed nearby under an open blue sky. No alarms, no war, only silence. But now the silence felt different. Not fear, not loneliness, peace. Kale looked toward the stars one final time. The galaxy once feared humanity because it disappeared. Now they finally understood the truth. Humanity did not hide from darkness. Humanity stood alone against it.